Hi, I'm Jocelyn Kochi, and the tutorial I'd like to share with you today is for an intermediate level piece called Flight of the Sorcerer. This comes from a collection called Danger Zone, which are 12 atmospheric pieces for mid to late intermediate piano. If you're in Australia and New Zealand, then Flight of the Sorcerer sits at 4th grade level, and if you're in Asia and the UK using the ABRSM system, then it would sit at 5th grade level. This particular book was composed in response to the demands of a number of my students for ever faster, louder, scarier and more impressive sounding music. Excuse me. They work particularly well with children and teens of all ages, but they particularly resonate with pre-adolescent children who are wanting to play everything fast and furious. So I'll play through Flight of the Sorcerer and then discuss some of this in more detail. So what I like to do with pieces like Flight of the Sorcerer is use them as an opportunity for students to learn the importance of technique if they're going to impress their friends with their virtuosity. For example, playing loud is only going to make an impact if it's balanced with softness. Playing fast is only going to be impressive if there's some slow alongside it to balance it. And playing fast is also going to only be impressive if it's done well, and that requires a secure technical facility. So approaching Flight of the Sorcerer with all of that in hand, we start to break down what's happening in the music and practice those elements effectively, slowly, with gradually increasing tempo, so that we know that they're going to work and not fall apart when we start to put all of that together. So having a look at this opening section of the music, the student can look and analyse what's happening there. They can see that they've got a descending F minor scale, F natural minor scale, which flies down through the registers until it lands deep in the bass and then begins to walk its way up with the focus on a dominant 7th chord, leading us into a repeat of the opening material, but this time in C minor. Oops, I think we're down here. And then we're flying down again through the registers. And again landing deep on the bass, again on the dominant 7th chord. But this time with a very uncomfortable non-resolution here to this very tense E flat that we're coming up to there. This really provides a great opportunity for students to look at what is happening in the music. You know, this is called Flight of the Sorcerer, so it really taps into their imagination so they can think about what is actually happening in the music at different points. So what is happening here in this tense passage here, you know, is down here, and then he's fading out gradually. So is he falling asleep? Is he going into a deep sleep where he has maybe magical dreams? Or is he conjuring up a spell, and this is all part of putting together the spell. And it works really when you think about what's happening in the next section, which is the B section, which has a long, slow growth through this G minor scale, and as it grows up, back up through the registers. So it's either can create a sense of awakening, it can create a sense of manifesting a spell, something growing. It's very much something growing or awakening. Still doesn't really resolve. It's still on this G minor scale, or it's still sitting on G where it has been for the last page. And then we start to come down again through that descending scale pattern again, but this time we're kind of going back to front. So we started in F minor with the descending F minor scale, and then we had a descending C minor scale, and then we ended up in G minor. So now we're in G minor and we're working our way back the way we came. So we're going through G minor, then through C minor until we land back home in F minor and reinforce that. So we come down the G minor scale, C minor, and F minor. And then we've got the final So it's like the final swoop or sweep of the Sorcerer as he flies home back down to base, back down to his home of F minor, and solidly finishes there. So lots of opportunities there for interpretation for the student. Teaching points, obviously the melodic, the natural minor scales. Feel free to change the fingering on these to be whatever works best for you. I wrote the fairly traditional scale fingering into this because I wanted it to support the teachers who were doing exams so that it could reinforce the fingering that they were using. But I personally don't use traditional fingering for scales, and I don't use it myself or for my students in this piece. My practice is always to have a thumb after black keys as the left hand descends and as the right hand ascends, and have thumbs before black keys coming back in the other direction. So for instance, in this opening section, I would personally be using this fingering, although it's really just as effective to finish on the fifth finger before moving on there in the left hand. In the C section, that works in a fairly straightforward fingering. That doesn't create any problems. G minor. Yeah, I think for the most part it works, but just feel free to fiddle around with it as much as you want to. The other place that the fingering is quite adaptable is in the third page, where we have this ascending G minor scale. I'll take it a little higher here so that you can see what's going on there. With the left hand, I've done 4, 2, 4, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 3. And I've done that fingering for consistency and simplicity because I think for most students it's helpful to keep things as much the same as possible so that they're not having to think about too much and get tripped up by ever-changing fingering. I personally find other fingering more effective. I like to use 4, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5. So that's what I would use, but I always, with my students, I just see really what works best for them. But I think the 4, 2, 4, 2 probably is more consistent and more simple for most students. Other teaching points, this opens up a discussion about the use of the dominant seventh, its function in modulation, and where that might not happen, such as in that place where we had this non-resolution to that very tense E flat. So that opens up some discussions about the use of the dominant seventh there and its function or non-function. Also, ample opportunity to express a story through the use of dynamics and tempo changes, and that can encourage composition for your students as well if they're doing their own compositions on how they can use dynamics and tempo changes effectively. And of course, bringing this picture of the sorcerer to light through fast flying notes. And adequate preparation obviously needs to be given to the scale passages there at a slower tempo in order for that to be played effectively, quickly, to bring the sorcerer to life in all his glory. So it does show the children the necessity to practice slowly and effectively if they're going to play fast well. So I think that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and the opportunities for technical and theoretical growth that this piece brings. Flight of the Sorcerer and the Danger Zone collection are available from Wirrapang at www.australiancomposers.com.au.